It is March 5th, 2024. It is Super Tuesday. Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of freedom. All right, so I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Guys, we're going to talk about the border crisis. There's a story that popped a couple of days ago. I didn't have the opportunity to speak about. I want to talk to you about it today. There's a new California bill that would make illegal aliens eligible for first-time home buyer loans. I think I mentioned it in passing. I want to talk about that. Obviously, the big news yesterday, it's still resonating today. We broke it yesterday right on the show, right on the podcast here, the Carl Jackson Show podcast, wherever you go to subscribe to your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. If you are on YouTube and Rumble, please review the show. That'll help us move up the charts. We would certainly appreciate that. So the Supreme Court gave America, not just Trump, but gave America a win because these people are complete and utter jokes on the left. Colorado Secretary of State, Jenna, whatever her name is, we'll get to her. We got some video of her that she and others, the Supreme Court actually of Colorado, were leading the effort to keep Trump off of the ballot. Yesterday, the Supreme Court struck that down. And so big news yesterday, and that's resonating. Liberals are going crazy as a result of that. The Supreme Court has also temporarily blocked a Texas law that allows police to arrest illegal aliens. The Biden administration is flying illegal aliens, or has flown 320,000 illegal aliens into the country secretly to reduce the number of crossings coming through our southern border. There's also 10 primaries beyond today that perhaps you should be aware of. Biden's pollings in the New York Times, it isn't looking good. Guys, I'm not the biggest fan of polls. But obviously, these polls are the reason why you see a lot of Democrats, at least in media, panicking. I do believe that we have to be careful as conservatives, Republicans, constitutionalists, libertarians, because I think that Democrats have a system that they run on. All right. So, polls tell you one thing, but Democrats will have get out the vote efforts. They will find a way. If Biden is the nominee and it is looking like he will continue to run, all right, they will figure out ways to at least try and get him over the finish line because they love him. Let's admit it. They love him. I mean, they've been gaslighting us for years. Everybody knows that the guy is, it drools over his food and drools, quite frankly, probably all the time. Everybody knows with a modicum of common sense and decency that this guy shouldn't be in the White House. His wife is abusive. I think she's guilty, in my opinion, Jill Biden, of elderly abuse. I think she's the reason. As a matter of fact, there's been reports that she's the reason why he's decided to seek a second term as opposed to his original promise to bow out of the race. We got so many videos lined up for you today. I can't even remember all of them, but we do have a couple of videos that initially are just a reaction from the Colorado Supreme Court case. Also, Steve Baker, I touched on that. I just want to make mention of it. I want to make mention of two things real quick because I'm not going to be able to get to them today. I will be in for the Officer Tatum tomorrow night. I'll be covering both of these topics, but you have Michael Moore talking about, the threat of white or Christian nationalism. Guys, all that is code for the left hates the Bill of Rights. I want you to understand that. You're going to hear Christian nationalism a lot. I blame a lot of evangelical Christians for not standing up to the cultural left all of these years. And as a result, they have advanced their LGBT barbecue community and all this kind of stuff for setting the agenda for the nation with the help of these big tech billionaires and these globalists and all this kind of nonsense. They're dividing us within groups and all that kind of stuff. The church was silent in the political realm for so long. The left advanced, and now they're using politics to fight against the church, and you cannot dare be silent. So that is an issue. Steve Baker, we talked about it yesterday in our podcast. He is a reporter for The Blaze. He was in the Capitol on January 6th for 37 minutes reporting on the events that occurred in the Capitol on January 6th, some of the chaos. He got video of Ashley Babbitt being wheeled out of the Capitol. And, according to him, he believed at least she was dead at the time. before they put her into the ambulance. But now he's being targeted, just like Catherine Herridge, formerly of Fox News, formerly of CBS, is being targeted. She would not reveal her sources. There was an alleged, in my opinion, Chinese spy that had some dealings with our federal government. Catherine Herridge was exposing that. Now, all of a sudden, her sources, if she doesn't reveal her sources, she's got to pay like a outstanding fine daily. It's insane. Steve Baker, he's been reporting accurately when it comes to January 6th on both sides of the aisle. The guy has been pretty fair and accurate. He's not a cheerleader for all J6 protesters, but he shoots straight. Right. And he is a cheerleader for some J6 protesters when he knows the media is lying about him because he's got his hands on video of J6. And isn't it convenient that all of a sudden the deep state, the DOJ, wants to prosecute him after he's been looking into the video that reveals that some of the U.S. Capitol Police were lying when they gave testimony about J6 protesters. Now, all of a sudden, he's got a record. Isn't that amazing how that works? So anyway, I just want to make mention of those. I won't be able to go into detail, but I want to make sure that you don't miss them. Let's do this. And then I want to go over some of the Biden's numbers, polling numbers, as the reason why the left are absolutely terrified right now. Again, we don't know what's going to happen in November, but the trending lines are not looking good for Biden, according to the polls. If you believe the polls, and again, I encourage you, don't get caught up in the polls where you don't go and do the work. Today's Super Tuesday. Make sure you get out and vote. It's very important that you exercise the freedoms that we have here. But without any further ado, let's go ahead. Gabe, whatever you have them lined up, I have a couple with Representative Raskin that I want to respond to. Also, the Colorado Secretary of State that said the decision yesterday by the Supreme Court of the United States to kick out the Trump's case or allow Trump to remain on the ballot. She talked about how that was basically an injustice of sorts, or why it was disappointing. I want to sound off on that, so we'll do all of that. Let's go ahead and roll. This is yesterday. This is Representative Jamie Raskin's take after the Supreme Court ruled, a complete smackdown in a 9-0 decision that states can't remove former President Trump from the ballot. Here's Representative Jamie Raskin. I'm going to debunk the lies. This guy is a complete and utter liar. This guy just cheated death, if I recall. He was wearing a bandana because he had cancer. This guy just cheated death, and he's still testing the flames of hell. Makes no sense whatsoever. Here he is. Let's go ahead and roll the video. Por favor, Gabe.
I am working with a number of my colleagues, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Eric Swalwell, to revive legislation that we had to set up a process by which we could determine that someone who committed insurrection is disqualified by Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And the House of Representatives already impeached Donald Trump for participating in insurrection by inciting it. So the House has already pronounced upon that.
Okay, so here it is. So this guy talks about he's working with his colleagues to develop legislation that would keep insurrectionists off the ballot. Here's a problem. Jamie Raskin, if you're a voter, all right, if you're a Democrat voter, Jamie Raskin just called you stupid because he doesn't realize that that Trump was never charged or convicted of insurrection. He also thinks you're stupid because he thinks that you don't realize that it is the GOP, albeit by a very slim majority, that are running the House of Representatives right now. So there's no way that type of legislation will go through. This guy is absolutely gaslighting for the sake of getting votes in November, or trying to secure votes for Democrats leading up to the November election. Nothing more, nothing less. But what I want you to understand is that Representative Jamie Raskin, if you're a Democrat voter, he just called you stupid. All right. Trump was never charged with insurrection. As a matter of fact, Ketanji Brown Jackson was an actual contextualist when it came to the 14th Amendment, Section 3. And she was like, oh, my God, how can you guys bring this case? The Colorado Supreme Court banned him from the ballot. This crazy nut job here, the Secretary of State of Colorado, She's man, and I forget her name. It's Jenna something. She's trying to be a hero, but her memory will long be forgotten. She's not going to be going far. What is her name? It is Secretary of State, I think Jenna. I don't know why I don't see it. Anyway, Secretary of State of Colorado, who wanted to keep Trump off the ballot, says that, it was a great disappointment. The Supreme Court of the United States was a disappointment. Let me pause and say this here. I thought about this last night, and I want to share this with you, those of you that are in the listening audience. I want to share this with you because Democrats always have a plan. They're always trying to advance. They are always trying to move forward. They're not feckless. My dog's going off. They're not feckless like Republicans, all right? So they always have a plan to try and move forward. Here's what I suspect the left wants to do, or it's trying to do, I should say. Again, this is about abolishing the Supreme Court, the 9-seat Supreme Court, delegitimizing the Supreme Court, bashing them. So they bring this case. They knew you have to, if the law is fair, all of these Democrats knew that this case would be kicked out, that the Supreme Court would rule against the Colorado Supreme Court of the United States, trying to take Trump off of the ballot. They knew this. I suspect that many of them wanted this because they want to continue with this argument that the Supreme Court is illegitimate and we have to do something with it. We got to get rid of all of the, right-wing radicals on the Supreme Court. So one, get out their voters, right? Galvanize their voters to come out and vote in a vote against the Supreme Court or against the constitutionalists or originalists, if you will, on the Supreme Court, but also to start making that argument or continue making the argument that maybe we need like 30-something, 40-something, people on the Supreme Court. Without further ado, let's go ahead and roll this video. This is the Colorado Secretary of State saying that she is disappointed that Trump will remain on the ballot in Colorado.
My larger reaction is disappointment. I do believe that states should be able, under our Constitution, to bar oath-breaking insurrectionists. And ultimately, this decision leaves open the door for Congress to act, to pass authorizing legislation. But we know that Congress is a nearly non-functioning body. So ultimately, it will be up to the American voters to save our democracy in November.
Okay. So ultimately, she says it'll be up to voters to save the democracy in November. And I just saw this chick's name. It is Jena Griswold. All right. So Jena Griswold, the nutcase, the Colorado Secretary of State that is a nutcase, all the way from Colorado, trying to destroy federal elections. She, too, is apparently uninformed. I mean, this is one of these little woke social justice warriors, obviously, that went through, that was indoctrinated more than likely in college. I suspect, guys, we don't live in a democracy, and I understand a lot of people using the word, and I'm not going to get all hyped up on this as a republic versus a democracy, but you should understand that we have a democratic republic, meaning that, all right, everybody gets to participate in the process, but what we do is we vote for our representatives, all right? And that's exactly what we do. Democracy is mob rule. That's what the left wants. If they can get a majority of people, dumb down the majority of Americans to believe that Donald Trump is actually some insurrectionist or whatever, then they can get rid of the Constitution, they can get rid of the rule of law, and they can rule the way that fascists rule, however the heck they want. That's what they want. That's what they're seeking. That's what you need to understand. She, too, believes that Democrats are dumb by making the remarks that, well, maybe she is dumb. She does look a little cray-cray. All right, so but this is a product of our educational system. All right, now I want to get into some issues when it comes to the southern border. All right, because the border is obviously wide open for anyone to cross and break the rules and break into America, invade America. That has not changed. That isn't going to be changing with the Biden administration. So a couple of stories worth note. Oh, But first, before I do this, let me do this. Let me just go through this. Let me explain the reason for the panic. I said that I would do that, but I heard others mentioning the polls yesterday when it came to Joe Biden. And again, I am encouraging you, do not get fixated on these polls, but they do allow us. To pause and to pause and to kind of get a snapshot, as many people might say, of where we are in time, at least with voters, as many of them stand right now. And I want you to understand why the Democrat Party, why the Biden administration perhaps is in panic mode, and it is too late to remove. They had several occasions, or a couple of occasions, where they could have removed Biden, or Biden could have announced he's not running. He hasn't done that. Joe Biden has apparently talked him into running a second term. Obviously, he likes getting the ice cream and the airplane rides and all that kind of stuff. Jill Biden likes being treated like a queen, so she doesn't want to go anywhere. They're willing to destroy the country. They're willing to do whatever it takes to retain power. But here's what other Democrats are looking at. And I want you to understand, if you think things are bad now, they're going to continue to get worse all the way up until Election Day, because the left is running scared. So that means more Trump persecution, perhaps, even though yesterday the Supreme Court deciding to keep Donald Trump on the ballot was a major blow to the left. And honestly, it isn't the case against him to keep him off the ballot was so dumb. It's sad that it would even have to go to the Supreme Court, but that's where we stand. Here are the polls that I'm talking about. Hat tip the blaze. Donald Trump leads Biden. The former president commands a respectable 5-point lead over Biden, 48 to 43% with just 8 months until Election Day. I suspect that's the national poll. As far as going the wrong way, the overwhelming majority of registered voters, 65% to 24%, believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. Man, that's huge. 65% of people compared to 24% believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. The other one, Biden approval. The majority of respondents say 61% disapprove of Biden's job as president, including 47% who strongly disapprove and only 36% who approve. Those are straight up commies. Favorability. More registered voters have a favorable opinion of Trump than they do of Biden. 43% favorable opinion of Trump, which isn't great, to 38% Biden, which just means that these voters hate Biden more than they hate Trump. And that is dangerous territory, considering everything the left has tried to do to absolutely destroy Trump. Biden too old. A majority, 73% of respondents said Biden is too old to be president, compared to just 42% who said the same is true of Trump. And you can look at both of these guys. I wish there would be a side to side. You could look at both of these guys and you could see, okay, Trump, whether you like him or not, the guy is a young, I believe 78, completely vibrant, where you look at Biden and you can tell the guy drews off the side of his mouth even when he's not asleep. All right. What can you do for me? This is another subtopic in the poll. Fewer than 20% of registered voters believe Biden's policies have helped them, whereas 40% said Trump has personally helped them, or his policies did. That doesn't bode well for Joe Biden. Now, I would prefer a poll of likely voters as opposed to registered voters, but perhaps all of these registered voters are going to be motivated to get out and vote. As far as the economy is concerned, a majority of respondents, 51%, describe the economy as poor, while another 23% described it as only fair. All right. So poor, as a 51% described the economy as poor, while another 23% described it as only fair. So I guess the other in between thinks it's good. Absolutely crazy. But no matter where you fall on that, Biden is not in good shape. Here's what the New York Times has to say. This again appeared on the Blaze. As proof, the poll shows Trump beating Biden among Hispanic voters as well. The survey, moreover, offers an array of warning signs for Biden that his weaknesses are splintering the Democratic coalition. And I've spoken about this before, actually plenty of times on the podcast, if you've tuned in. As proof, the poll shows Trump beating Biden among Latino voters while being tied among female voters. Now, remember, Trump had a problem with white female suburban voters. It appears as though that's shifting, at least as of this survey. Trump also garnered support from 23% of black voters, a sure sign that Democrats are hemorrhaging the core of their support. Now, will all of these black voters show up to vote for Trump? I don't think so, but I do believe his numbers will increase. I think Trump got 12% of the black vote in 2020. I suspect that his numbers will grow anywhere between 15 to 20%, which is absolutely huge if that's true. You have others out there predicting 30 to 40%. I don't see that happening, but honestly, it doesn't take much to start shifting this Democrat Party and start breaking up all of their little groups and coalitions. All right. Even worse for Biden is the fact that nearly all of Trump's 2020 supporters plan to vote for Trump in 2024, whereas Biden is currently losing a sizable chunk of his 2020 constituency. Here's what they write. Mr. Trump's ability to consolidate the Republican base better than Mr. Biden has unified the base of his own party. Shows up starkly in the current thinking of 2020 voters. Trump is winning 90% of those who say they voted for him 4 years ago. And virtually none of his past supporters said they are casting a ballot for Mr. Biden. Here's the scary news for Biden. In contrast, Biden is winning only 83% of his 2020 voters, with 10% saying they're now going to back Trump. If these numbers do remain true, Biden is going to have a rough night on election night. Now, we got a lot of time. There's going to be a lot of get out the vote efforts. So do not take this for granted. All right. So, but despite the warnings, which poll after poll have shown for the majority of 2024 contests, Biden's campaign is dismissing the results. And of course, they have to. It's an election year. They don't want to panic voters. But listen, I don't suspect that Biden's policies are going to get better leading up to the election. Not much is going to get done in Congress, and the Biden administration wants illegal aliens to continue to flood our borders. Now, having said that, this is former President Barack Obama. Here's what he had to say. Now, honestly, let's be fair when it comes to Barack Obama, because a lot of conservatives are painting Barack Obama as a guy that was tough on the border. He was pulling shenanigans to make his border numbers look better, too. If you remember towards, I think that his second term, they had a lot of kids that were flooding the United States of America. I felt like they let so many of them come in order to make a political point, and then they eventually shut the borders down. And there were a lot of people that were upset and protesting in the streets. I can't remember if that was his first or second term, but I believe his second term, in areas where they were dropping some illegal aliens off into the country. You might remember the video of kids literally riding into the country through Mexico into the United States on train rail. By a train rail. Anyway, this is how far the party has gone in just a few short years. Here's former President Barack Obama. Let's roll the video. Por favor, Gabe.
I think we should have strong border security. It doesn't make sense for us to allow hundreds of thousands of people coming through our borders without us knowing who they are. Oftentimes in very hazardous situations and unmonitored situations that could do us long-term damage. I think we should have a serious employer verification system where employers, when they hire somebody, find out what their work status is. Are they able to work here legally? Right now, what employers will say is, well, we check their Social Security card. That's the best we can do. So we've got to set up a tamper-proof system and then hold employers accountable. And this, for some, is the most controversial part, that we've got to have a pathway to citizenship for the 12 million people or so who are already here. You pay a fine, you learn English, you stay out of trouble, you've got a job, you go to the back of the line so that those who came here legally, that backlog is cleared before you have opportunities for citizenship. That is a reasonable approach, and one that will ultimately address the biggest problem for American workers, and that is the depressive effect of undocumented workers who aren't right now subject to oftentimes minimum wage laws or worker safety laws or all the other things that make them cheaper for employers. If they're out of the shadows, then we can make sure those laws are enforced and those cost advantages for hiring undocumented workers go away.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with most of what he said. Obviously, not for the 12 million people that were here getting a pathway to citizenship. You shouldn't be able to break into a country. Shouldn't be able to happen, in my opinion, and move to the front of the line. I know he talked about putting them in back of the line, but that never happens. These people are used as political pawns. But having said that, just notice how clear Barack Obama was, the former president was, when it came to illegal immigration. Man, have times shifted. It's just absolutely insane where we are today, as opposed to where we are, where we were then, even with the guy that was far left. Remember, Obama, for his time, he wasn't just a liberal. He was far left. He set the tone. I do believe this is his third term, so to speak. He laid the foundation for the nutsos to take over. But man, have they really taken over. All right, Gabe, let's go ahead and let me just share this. Let me share these stories real quick because it's important, and then we'll wrap up sharing the rest of these videos on immigration. But there's a new California bill that would make illegal aliens eligible for first-time home buyer loans. And unfortunately, I ran out of printing paper, so I couldn't write notes. So I'm going to have to read some of this verbatim. This appeared on Fox News the other day. So a guy by the name of Joaquin Arambuya, he's a Democrat assemblyman in California. He introduced a assembly bill, so AB 1840, earlier this year, that would create an alternative way for illegals to achieve home ownership. The bill is set to expand eligibility criteria for a state loan program to expand these loans to include illegal aliens that are first-time buyers. So again, this bill is set to expand eligibility criteria for a state loan program to expand loans. Arambuya's update to the bill states, quote, an applicant under the program shall not be disqualified solely based on the applicant's immigration status. I won't get into all the nuts and bolts and dirty details of this, but needless to say, the left has something. They're doing something. This is what they're doing. This is what I want you to understand. Why would the Democrats in California, and by the way, get out there and vote for Steve Garvey if you're hearing this podcast, man. Let's shake up Cali. Let's shake up Cali. Let's get Steve Garvey on a one-on-one headed into the November election and the jungle primary system in California. But here's what the left is trying to do. If the left truly believes that America is stolen property per se, what do you think they're doing? They're returning America to its rightful owners. That's what they believe. That's what they believe. That's why these fools are so dangerous. You're going to have Americans competing against jobs, houses, medical resources, schooling. You understand how bad this is going to get? And it's not going to stay in California. It's just going to start in California. This is... I can't help but to say that this is crazy, but we have our time to shine. You live in California, wherever you live, you got to get out and you got to vote for people that are going to fight back to save this country. This is Merrick Garland on voter ID. This is the Department of Justice head, Merrick Garland, talking about voter ID, basically how we need to eliminate voter ID. Let's go ahead and roll this video of this guy.
The right to vote is still under attack. And that is why the Justice Department is fighting back. That is why one of the first things I did when I came into office was to double the size of the voting section of the Civil Rights Division. That is why we are challenging efforts by states and jurisdictions to implement discriminatory, burdensome, and unnecessary restrictions on access to the ballot, including those related to mail-in voting, the use of drop boxes, and voter ID requirements. That is why we are working to block the adoption of discriminatory redistricting plans that dilute the vote of black voters and other voters of color.
All right, so dilute the vote of black voters. Let me just respond to that. All right, blacks make up, what, 12, 13% of the population? And so what the left wants to do, or what they want to maintain, are voting blocks for Democrat congressional districts where blacks make up 80, 90%. I mean, some insane number, so that Democrats can win those seats all the time. Now, granted, Republicans do the same thing, but they tend to they tend to gerrymander where their districts are favorable, as opposed to not based upon skin color, but based upon registration, whereas Democrats constantly go for this race card. They constantly play the race card. How many people do you believe that were sitting in that black church? I'm getting so sick and tired of the useful idiots, I'm sorry, I gotta say it, in black congregations that allow the Democrats to come in and just make up lies and keep the black community hostile, keep us divided. This shouldn't be allowed in a church building, but this is what happens. Sadly, that's why I say Black Lives Matter has had a bigger impact than in the black community than the black evangelical church has ever had. It's a sad state of affairs in the United States of America, but it's true. Let me ask you common sense. Who do you know, poor or otherwise, that doesn't have voter ID? Guys, I deal with people that are ghetto fabulous literally almost every day in my life based upon my service business. I've never met anyone that doesn't have photo ID unless they've lost it. You know why? People even in the hood and the poorest of the poor have photo ID. Because they're probably getting welfare checks. Maybe they want to buy some alcohol. Maybe they want to buy some tobacco. Maybe they just, if they want to check into a hotel or something like that. I dare you to find someone in the black community that doesn't have voter ID. And then, who's been prevented from voting? Do you think anybody sitting in that office has been prevented from voting? Guys, all they're trying to do is they realize they're replacing us. And the people in that audience, they may not realize it, but it's part of the reason why we have open borders. The Democrats have a lot of, blacks that are allegedly, backing away from Biden. They don't care. They don't care, or they do care, but they're counting on illegal aliens being able to vote. That What do you think they're bringing them into the country for? Here's a video. I'm getting some feedback in my ear for whatever reason, Gabe. It's low, but it's there. But here's a video of this guy is the former, I think, forgive me, because I'm looking through, again, I couldn't print out. Normally I print out some stuff and write some notes on it. Wasn't able to do that. So I'm having to scroll through my phone. But this gentleman is who is he? Raul Ortiz. He's the U.S. Border Patrol chief under President, or was the U.S. Border Patrol chief under Biden. I think he retired just about a year ago after that whipping incident, or not too long after the whipping incident. Here's what he had to say when it comes to securing the border. Do you think Joe Biden ever talked to this man, or or the border czar Kamala Harris, VP Kamala Harris, ever talked to him about the situation on the border? Let's hear his words. See what he has to say.
You don't just plant a flag just to plant a flag. It's got to be strategic, and it's got to make sense.
Raul Ortiz served as chief of the U.S. Border Patrol under President Biden and deputy chief under President Trump. He retired last year.
When agencies are making a decision based upon politics, or whether they're going to get media coverage, hey, we're going to put all our personnel in this 2-mile stretch. What about the other 200 miles?
In our interview, Ortiz criticized Governor Abbott for not cooperating with the Border Patrol and playing politics with immigration. But he also expressed frustration with President Biden.
I've never had one conversation with the president, or the vice president for that matter. And so I was the chief of the Border Patrol. I commanded 21,000 people. That's a problem.
I just saw 50 people today who had just crossed the border illegally. So something's not working.
We need to make sure that Central America, South America, Mexico, that those regions understand that if you pay a smuggler and you cross in between the ports of entry and you do not have a legitimate claim to some sort of asylum benefit, you're going to be sent back.
Do you believe that the White House has sent mixed messages to migrants?
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. So again, former border chief there, he never had a conversation with Joe Biden, never had a conversation with the border czar Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris. Why? Because they don't care to secure the border, guys. We all know this. We all know that this is being done intentionally. Let me just share the last couple of stories with you, and then we'll close this out. By the way, today's podcast is brought to you by MyPillow.com. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square at the top of the page, and enter my name, Carl. That is C-A-R-L, por favor. Enter my name, Carl, C-A-R-L. It's the radio podcast square. Whatever deals are available, or the huge discounts that are available to you, or will be available to you, I should say, when you use the promo code Carl, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. Remember, I always encourage you, if you are going to buy any of the products that you see on MyPillow.com, why not give them a shot? Why not buy American-made products? Why not buy or support American jobs and get yourself a good night's rest? From the MyPillow 2.0, from mattress toppers to the Giza Dream Sheets, you name it. They've got great towels there. They've got dog beds there. They've got slippers, the My Slippers that you'll absolutely love. So whatever, if you're going to buy something anyway, Mother's Day is coming up, Father's Day is coming up, Easter is coming up. If you're going to buy anything for any of these reasons, or just to get a good night's rest with the new MyPillow 2.0, give them a shot. MyPillow.com, promo code Carl, or 800-858-0263, 800-858-0263. Okay, so let me just share these couple of stories. The Biden administration, this is from the Daily Mail. So the Biden administration has literally admitted to flying in 320,000 illegal aliens secretly into the U.S. to reduce the number of crossings at the border because of national security vulnerabilities. So they wanted to make the numbers at the border look like they're not that bad, even though they're breaking records every single freaking month. So they decided to go and charter flights, I guess charter flights, or use airlines to go to the homeland of some of the illegals, fly them in literally from airports in their own countries so they don't have to make the trek. So we're literally importing illegal aliens via airplane. We're taxiing them in via airplanes into the United States. Here's what Daily Mail had to say. A lawsuit reveals that Biden's Custom and Border Patrol is refusing to disclose airports where it is flying illegal aliens from other countries. Now, they say undocumented. I'm not using those terms. I'm going to tell you the truth. It comes amid a continued flow of illegals over the southern border. Biden's expansion of the CBP One app allows migrants to apply, and that is basically illegals have an app on their phone. They're being given free phones. They can apply for asylum while they're getting ready to invade the United States of America. It's insane. But Biden's expansion of the CBP One app allows migrants to or illegals to apply for asylum in their country, be flown. So they apply for asylum in their country, and then they're flown to the U.S. and given 2 years to obtain legal status. They're importing Democrats. This is the Democratic slave trade. That's what this is, or the latest Democratic slave trade, I should say. It means, Daily Mail says, that while record numbers of illegals were flowing over the southern border last year, the Biden White House was also directly transporting them into the country. Use of a cell phone app has allowed for the near undetected arrival by air of 320,000 aliens with no legal rights to enter to the United States. It comes after a controversy over a 2022 transportation program in which the administration used taxpayers' money to move migrants throughout the country on overnight flights. Here's another story I want to share with you real quick, and I'll go over these tomorrow night when I'm in for the Officer Tatum in more detail and specificity. This from the AP. Supreme Court temporarily blocks Texas law that allows police to arrest migrants. All right. Again, illegals. So this, according to the AP in Austin, Texas, Texas plans to arrest illegals who enter the U.S. illegally and order them to leave the country is headed to the Supreme Court. All right. In a legal showdown over the federal government's authority over immigration. So basically, you have the Department of Justice. Let me just read it. An order issued Monday by Justice Samuel Alito puts the new Texas law on hold for at least next week while the high court considers what opponents have called the most dramatic attempt by a state to police immigration since an Arizona law more than a decade ago. That was with Governor Jan Brewer. I think that was SB 10 or something like that. The law known as Senate Bill 4 or SB 4 had been set to take effect on Sunday under a decision by the conservative-leaning U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, they say conservative-leaning. This is the AP. All right. Alito's order pushed that date back until March 13th and came just hours after the DOJ asked the Supreme Court to intervene. Make no mistake, SB 4, this is the radical ACLU. Make a quote from them. Make no mistake, SB 4 bypasses federal immigration authority and threatens the integrity of our nation's constitution and laws, quote unquote. I won't go on about this, but here's basically what Texas is trying to do. You have the ACLU arguing that Texas does not have the right to basically implement or enforce federal law when the federal government is allowing illegals to come in. Now, they're not framing it that way, but what Texas is saying, what Governor Greg Abbott is saying is, wait a minute, what Texas is doing is following federal law to a T, and the Biden administration is not following federal law by allowing all of these illegals to invade our country. So anyway, who has jurisdiction? Does a state have the power? Does a state have the power to enforce basically federal law is what they're saying. When you're invaded, I say yes. All right. So anyway, they will iron that out. But Lord willing, there's a victory here. I pray for Texas. Here's a video that we have. I believe this might be the last video of Department of Homeland Security. I don't know why he's caught that. This is Alejandro Mayorkas. Here's what he has to say on the border situation.
Well, first of all, let me say that we don't use the term illegal immigrants. I actually issued a policy in the Department of Homeland Security. We use the term non-citizen to respect the dignity of every individual as a preliminary matter.
Okay, so this tells you, yeah, they're not illegal immigrants to them. To them, they're Democrats. The illegals that are invading the United States of America, to them, they're Democrats. They're voters. This is the slave trade. This is the democratic slave trade. We'll bring you into this country. If you're in California, you can apply for first-time home buyer laws. You can go wherever the heck you want to go, commit crimes. We don't care. What's important is that when we allow you to come into this country, when we hook you up with welfare, when you get to go into our school system and all that, just make sure you vote Democrat. That's all we're asking. That's all we're asking. That's what they're doing. This is the great replacement theory, except it's not a theory. It's a conspiracy, because it's exactly what the left is conspiring to do. Just one last thing. Tap that Fani Willis. The walls continue to cave in on her. I'll just share this news with you, and I'm sure I'll share this in more detail tomorrow night as well, and perhaps even tomorrow in the podcast. I'm not sure, but there's been more news involving the Fani Willis story. Nathan Wade, as you guys know, Fani Willis is the DA for Fulton County that is prosecuting Trump for election interference, cheating, or whatever it may be in Georgia. The case is continuing to fall apart. The latest is that a prosecutor in Fani Willis's office is willing to testify against her. Apparently, the former divorce attorney for Nathan Wade was in a room sitting with this prosecutor and having a conversation where at one time Fani Willis basically called, the lady could hear her speaking to this guy, Terrence Bradley, telling Terrence Bradley, who was the divorce lawyer for Nathan Wade, not to give anybody any information, because he knew for a fact, basically, that their affair started way before he admitted to, even in court. So he may have perjured himself in court. I mean, it's just insane. So now you have this prosecutor in Fani Willis's office willing to testify against her. Man, this is getting juicy. Fani Willis may be on her way to jail. Now, the left will do everything they can to keep her out of it. She is too arrogant. She believed that because she was black and female, she could get away with prosecuting Trump, all the while being corrupt as all get out, not expecting that the cameras or the tables will turn on her, but it appears as though they are. All right, so I don't have time to get into details on that, but I wanted to make sure that I did bring it to your attention. There is one last thing. Somebody involved with this Russia collusion hoax was just announced their resignation. Let me see if I see it anywhere. Just want to make sure. Oh, AOC was marked. Hunter Biden called father from lavish Russian party, asked for help getting deal over the finish line, according to ex-associate. Don't have time to get into this, but it appears that Hunter Biden is slipping up. He's accidentally proving that Joe Biden was the big guy and involved in the business, and he was just the president of Joe Biden's operation. But that's the headline from Daily Wire. Hunter Biden called father from lavish Russian party, asked for help getting deal over the finish line. Wow. I can't wait to get into the details of that. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to the Carl Jackson Show. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. Please follow me on all things social media at the Carl Jackson Show. We are on X. We're on Instagram, Facebook, True Social, Getter, wherever I am. Please find me. Please share. I try to respond to, I can't always, but I try my best to respond to messages, so on, etc. So give me a shout out, if you will, or say hey, and I'll try to say hey back. I scroll through them as much as I possibly can. Anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning in. All right. Until next time, do not grow weary doing good. God bless you.